Well, hello, everybody, and welcome back to the EFCA Worship Leader Podcasts. And it's been so exciting to do the first few, and we are excited about this one as well. We have we're not spanning out to California like we did last time, but we do have some from Dallas, and probably not the particular Dallas that you are thinking about. So before we get into our questions, I'm gonna let our guys introduce themselves. So Mike is going to be with me, kind of co-hosting today. So Mike, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, hey, I'm Micah. I serve at a church in Apple Valley, and my role is kind of multifaceted, but broadly speaking, I am the associate pastor. So I oversee a handful of things, and worship and music is one of those components.
Outstanding. And on the hot seat today is Karl Dyrli. Karl, your church is in Dallas, but what particular Dallas is it in?
Yeah, I like to say we're the first Dallas. We're in Dallas, Pennsylvania, which was incorporated by a relative of the Dallas related to Dallas, Texas, but incorporated first. But anyway, yeah, we're in Northeast Pennsylvania near the famous Scranton due to the office. But we're in that region of the country, and I've been here for 14 years. I've been a pastor who oversees worship ministry and the primary worship leader there. But I also serve as pastor of worship and ministry operations at this time. So some of the other responsibilities as an associate pastor have been shifted over the years, but worship has always been my primary focus.
That is outstanding. So since you've been there, so you have some longevity within the worship ministry and at your particular church at this time. So it just begs the question. I love asking this question. What do you wish you knew then, what you know now?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I just look back with such thankfulness at the fact that I've been able to serve at the same church for 14 years here. And before that, I was at a church for 17 years as an associate pastor for most of that time. And I just really appreciate and I'm very thankful for all of those years. Sometimes it can be discouraging because I feel like, hey, I should be better at this by now. But, you just look back and just think about all these years, all these worship services. And I'm just very thankful for the opportunities that my lead pastors have taken in me, even when I was just a young guy coming out of college, to give me a chance to serve the church in this way. And I think number one thing that I embraced early in ministry, and I think from day one is critically important, of course, is a love for God, a love for the church, a love for the local church. And I think to let ministry flow out of those two loves, a genuine love for God, to see him get glorified, to get what he deserves. And then it's really been important for me to really love the congregation, to love the people of the congregation, and to let ministry flow out of that. And to think about ministry as a way of ministering to them.
Yeah, that's so good. A follow-up question to that would be, what does the love for congregation look like when you're caring for your team? Because obviously as worship leaders and as pastors, we have a level of care for our congregation as a whole, and then we have another level of care for our team. So how has that love for your congregation worked itself out in caring for your team?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think loving the congregation, and by that I'm referring really to what 1 Corinthians 13 is talking about, because right in the context of 1 Corinthians 12 and 14, talking about using your gifts to edify the church, is this passage, this beautiful passage about loving. And so the primary context of that is, as you serve, as you use your gifts, do so in a way filled with love for those people, for the other parts of the body of Christ, that you would be unified as you serve them. And that goes for the team, especially as we serve together. I've always tried to be a relational leader, getting to know my team, talking to them, greeting them every time they come in the door, seeing what's going on with them, reaching out to them outside of practice. And even just a simple thing of trying to talk to every one of them at the end of a service, and just kind of see how they're doing and thank them for serving. And one of the things I've communicated to team members is that you are more important than the ministry that I can squeeze out of you. So if they're a drummer, but they're going through a really hard time at home, and they're struggling, I just want to show more pastoral shepherding and care for them as a person, and that I care more about that, even if we have to go a week without a drummer, to just do whatever I can to be gracious to them and help encourage them to use their gifts, but never lose track of the fact that, who they are, their relationship with God, their relationship with a team. It matters more than what I can get them to do for ministry and service, because they have to be motivated by love as well. And if they're going through a struggle, I have to, as a shepherd and a pastor, really just try to care for them in the midst of that and tell them that I care more about that than what they're doing.
Like, I know James tells us, not to have favorites, to avoid favoritism, but is there a favorite thing about worship leading for you, of all the aspects? And it seems like over the years, the aspects have just grown and grown and grown and grown and grown. More things have been added into whatever the worship leader, worship director, worship pastor does. Is there a particular thing that just kind of scratches your itch?
Yeah. Right from the beginning, I think I had a small sense of this, and I do feel like it's grown through the years, is a great love for worshiping with the gathered congregation. Our church has a big focus on the value of the local church and the value of gathering as a church to worship God. And that just resonates in my heart, and it always has, but I just feel like it's getting stronger and stronger. So one of the ways I see that is if I look out and I'm leading worship, and what a gift it is to lead worship with a congregation there and to be able to look at their faces and watch who's there. And once in a while, I'll catch somebody who I know is going through it. Their husband just left them, or they're going through cancer treatments, or whatever it is, or they lost a child. And to see people like that pouring out their heart to God in song, and they're not thinking about me, and they're not thinking about, the timing of the band. They're in that moment thinking about the glory of God and just pouring out their heart to Him in worship. I mean, there's nothing that really just generates that kind of zeal, and sometimes it's overpowering to me. It's like sometimes I just break down and cry, just looking at that. And then I got to lean on the other singers, but it's one of the most powerful things I can see. When we have a really good practice at the end on Sunday mornings, we run through all our songs, we get to the end of practice, and sometimes with excitement, I say, next time we do this song, we're going to be with the congregation. Like, I'm so excited about seeing and hearing the congregation pour out their hearts to God and be engaged in worship.
Yeah, it's so funny because it's so easy to make assumptions when you're standing up front and you're looking out and you see somebody who's just doesn't look like anything is landing, anything is connecting. They're just kind of stoic, and you're just like, man, where are they? And then that's a person that comes up to you after the service being like, I'm just so grateful. You're like, man, I couldn't tell. But then you're blessed with the opportunity of seeing somebody who you immediately know that a lyric or something that is read or said has made a connection. And that's really what brings you back is to think that like those things happen, the importance of this thing that we do with music and the time to create a particular service. It is connected with somebody. That's just a powerful thing. I appreciate that answer. It resonates with me as well.
Yeah, and what you just said, that I remember that exact thing happening early on. So I started off, I'm 22 years old. I'm out of college. I'm leading this team of musicians, and the church hadn't even really had a worship team like that for very long. So it was all pretty new. And I remember playing, and I was always, I feel like I'm not a musician who's going to be a recording artist. I've got a decent grasp of the acoustic guitar, a decent grasp of playing the keyboard. I can sing, kind of a baritone range, but I'm not a professional recording artist kind of caliber. My heart is in seeing the congregation worship. I just try to stay out of the way of that. And so as we're doing that, when I was 22, I used to worry. I'd get so nervous. I'd be shaking every Sunday morning and just want to run away. And I remember looking out at a couple of guys that I can think of his name right now. His name was Jim, just with his arms folded, just staring at me the whole time. And I'm thinking to myself while I'm playing, he hates me. He just wants me to leave. He doesn't want me here. He doesn't think I should, but he was the guy who came up to me after once and said, Sunday mornings have been so meaningful to me. Thank you so much for leading us in prayer. And then I think the greater lesson for me was to just get over myself, forget about what people are thinking about me, and care mostly about what are people thinking about God. And if I make a mistake, and so be it. If it draws people's attention somehow and God uses it to highlight more of his glory or something about his character, then I'm fine with that. And that kind of servant attitude of like, I'm willing to go where I'm uncomfortable for the purpose of seeing people, engaged with glorifying God, then that's what I want to do.
Yeah, that's so good. Well, and we talk about needing in worship ministry skill and heart, right?
Mm-hmm.
And skill is important, but what you're highlighting, I think, is what's critical is that we're here to engage with God.
Mm-hmm.
And music facilitates that, but music isn't the most important thing.
Mm-hmm. Right. It's a tool. It's a
tool. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
That's great. On that note, then, I have kind of a two-part question. And it's, what songs are you singing right now? That's part one. And part two is, how do you evaluate your songs, either the ones that you're singing or the ones that you're thinking about adding, that help facilitate those things that you're talking about here, engaging with God in right worship?
Yeah. Great. Important questions. I'll start with the second part if I could. Our song evaluation process is pretty thorough, and it's a team approach. Something that really my former lead pastor started when I got here, working with me one-on-one, meeting every single week, talking about the songs that we're singing. And then right now we have a staff of 4 pastors and other staff as well, and a worship director. So we work together on all of that. We have a shared Google sheet where we'll just put, here's the song idea, here's the link to listen to it, here's my comments on it. And we'll evaluate songs based on, of course, number one, theological and biblical fidelity. We'll talk about singability, how engaged will the congregation be with this song. Musical, can our team do it well? Can we do this musically?
Yep.
What's going to happen as after the congregation has a chance to learn it? Will it be help us fulfill our mission as a worship ministry? And so we talk about that. A lot of the times we're evaluating songs and lyrics based on, is it appropriate for a congregation to sing too? There are some songs that are very, very personal, and personal is okay. We try to have a balanced diet between, Lord, I am saying this to you, which is a biblical prayer, because you see that in the Psalms. But we also want to balance that with, Lord, we say this to you together. And so we try to balance those things. We balance, even the theological complexity of songs. Like, it's okay to have a pretty simple song sometimes, and then, but also try to balance it with a diet of maybe something that makes your brain work a little harder to understand the lyrics and get some depth into it. So, with that, we have a pretty big variety, I would say, of sources. Lately, like, we really enjoy some of the speaking of like the mental challenge of the Getty song, Christ, our hope in life and death. We've learned that song. The congregation sings it really well. It's got a really strong chorus. But it does have some lines in that you really got to stop and think about and engage your brain. There's songs that are maybe a little simpler, that we're declaring something about God, and that's okay. Again, a balanced menu on each Sunday. We love Sovereign Grace songs. A lot of those have praise his name from Psalm 148 we've introduced recently. He is our God is a good starting song. All I Have Is Christ is a great kind of bedrock song for us. We've been singing for a number of years. A City of Light, we love It Was Finished Upon That Cross. The Worship Initiative, I don't know who first wrote it, but Abide is just a really important song to us over the last year or so that we've been singing, as well as a lot of Wickham songs are just really do a good job of declaring the gospel in an upbeat way, like This Is Our God. And we did a song at Easter. I'm not sure if it'll stay as a special song. We kind of did it as a special, What He's Done by Passion. Christian Stanfield does a version of that. Great song. And we've another new one we've just introduced is a song called Your Church. This Is Your Church is the chorus by Canyon Hills Worship. It's a lesser known group, but we are our worship director stumbled across it, and it really says something that we feel like was lacking in what we're trying to say. And it's very much just talking about the local church and how we belong to Christ, and the gospel is the center of our mission, and we're united together through, the communion that we have in Christ. And so sometimes a song like that, even though it's maybe not as famous, really says something well about ecclesiology and about who we are as a church. So we introduced that. We've done that a couple of times. And then we'll meet every week as well as pastors and look back on our service and talk about, all of those things. Did the song communicate well? Were there theological questions with it? Was the congregation learning it? Is it worth keeping on and give them a chance to learn it? And then we meet and talk about the services beforehand, plan it. I'll do a primary draft, and then our lead pastor and I will primarily be the ones to work on the service planning. And then afterwards, we'll do a meeting and look back and talk about it, see how it went.
That's great.
I want to follow up first, as you were talking about like the grammar of some of the songs that we're singing. This is a first person, this is I. And I find that a lot of the songs that we sing are actually meant to be sung to one another. I think of something like "Crown Him with Many Crowns." Like, I'm not telling God to crown Himself with crowns, right? I'm singing this to somebody in the congregation. Hey, crown
That's right.
him, right? Pointing to. So I'm curious, like, do you take an opportunity maybe in your service to do a mini teaching on some of the songs that you're singing and the posture you should be taking in singing them?
Yeah, I think on that point, I mean, that's a very biblical thing that you just said there. The idea that we're singing songs, we're teaching one another while also singing in our hearts to God. So both are happening at the same time, scripturally, in that passage in Ephesians and I think Colossians. Yep. So, in both of those cases, I'll highlight that sometimes. I'll try to, in one sentence, I try not to talk so long that people get bored. In a one sentence, invitation to worship, try to communicate that and say, we have an opportunity now to sing to the Lord and to one another. So let your voice be heard. Let the people around you hear you declare these truths as we sing. Let's stand and sing, that kind of thing. So I'll try those little snippets are theological, gems taken out of scripture. And periodically I'll give a sermon as well. So I'll preach a few times a year, 4 or 5 times at this point, maybe even a little less these days since we have 4 pastors. But I have preached about worship and try to do that periodically as well, because it's a central part of our vision as a church. Our vision is that we be a worshiping, growing, serving, and multiplying church. And so we'll highlight those in sermons. And when I preach about, last time I preached about worshiping, I went to those passages and really boiled it down to, when you come into church, you should be thinking 2 things. I'm here to glorify God with all of my might. I'm here for that purpose. But I also look around at this congregation and think to myself, this is the group of people that God has given to me to minister to today. And that's for everyone to think, not just the pastors, not just the staff. Say, you have a responsibility today. Here's your task. Look at the congregation. So, a simple thing to help communicate that is we built a new worship center in 2020. And, we're very excited. It was a huge step for us as a church. And we intentionally designed the chairs to curl around, and they're sloped. And so we can see each other. And we don't turn all the lights off. I don't say when I'm leading worship, just close your eyes and imagine it's just you and God. Because it's not, we want to see and hear one another. And we tell people this room is designed for that purpose, so that we can sing to one another and you can hear each other. And so awesome. I try each Sunday to drop out the band at least once a Sunday and just let them belt it out, a cappella, so that they can hear each other and see that they have purpose in what they're doing that day.
Oh, so
I love that. I love that. You mentioned, having a balanced diet in your song selection. Sounds like a Zach Hicks reference. If I
actually no, but
no, okay,
that is something that he does say.
He does. He talks about that. But I'm curious, as you think about your songs now. You mentioned you introduced a song in your church about kind of an ecclesiological gap that was in your song selection. Do you have other things that you would identify as gaps right now in your song selection that you're looking for songs to fill?
Yeah, I think we are strong in songs. It just seems like there's a plethora of good songs that declare the gospel, which
Hmm.
is exactly what we want to do in a big anthem. Like he died on the cross and he rose again, and we have victory over sin and death. And I'm so glad that's the truth, because we do that every single Sunday. It's
Mm,
harder to find a good gathering song, to me, like that
mm,
first song that we sing when we gather. I don't know, just kind of declaring that purpose, a little bit upbeat, communicating that with joy and excitement that here we are together, and I'm so glad to join with my brothers and sisters with the purpose of giving glory to God. So that's one that I feel like we're always looking for. We have a few that we really connect with that we use. We also use we call it a prep song, a song right before the sermon.
okay.
Similar to, like, the best example of that is Show Us Christ, Sovereign
Mm,
Grace, where
yep.
we're saying, Lord, reveal your glory through the preaching of your word. And we're just submitting our hearts to God before the preaching of his word.
Yeah.
I wish there were some more of those. And even songs to close the service, to make certain applications.
Mm,
It's funny. We just preached through the book of Acts over a number of different sermon series. Sometimes you'll read a passage and you'll be like, okay, this is the message of this passage. Now, how can we conclude the service that really drives that home? And
mm,
sometimes it's tricky to say, well, is it really forcing it too much to try to make this the closing song to that theme? Some of those application songs of yes, Lord, I'll respond to this, and my application is I'm not going to worship idols. There's maybe it's more limited, at
yeah.
least in the songs that I'm aware of. So there's certain spots like that I think good upbeat songs
Mm,
can be a challenge. Unfortunately, I think, and I'm not trying to sound critical, but I see more and more songs coming out that are very much about me and what I'm doing. I'm gonna sing. They're not saying very much about God. They're saying a lot more about about me and how I'm responding to God. But which is okay. Psalms do that. The Psalms say, I will give thanks to the Lord, for example. But it also talks about why I'm giving thanks to the Lord,
Right.
not
yeah.
just that I'm giving thanks to the Lord. So, as we've looked through the most popular songs, like if you just go to a playlist on iTunes and say, what's the most popular worship songs today? I'm kind of disappointed in the top, bunch of those a lot of times,
Mm,
because I feel like they do need to say something about
A little
why
stronger.
we're shouting to the Lord and why we're, singing to the Lord.
I want to shift gears here a little bit.
Mhm.
I think every one of us that listens to this or is going to watch this is going to identify with this idea of volunteers.
mm,
Um, so my question for you is kind of about your onboarding process. So if
mm.
somebody were just to come up to you on a Sunday morning and just be like, "Hey, I play the piano too. How can I join?"
Mhm.
How do you answer that question?
Yeah. Yeah, it's a great question, and I think a healthy church that's going to be a steady stream, even if it's sporadic, just a steady stream of people um, stepping forward and want to participate in the ministry, and I want the whole team to be okay with that and to welcome in a new member and to give them a chance to grow. I mean, that's the way it worked for me and worked for all of us. People
Yeah.
saw something in my lead pastor saw something in me, gave me an opportunity to serve, and continued to encourage me in that. And I've grown tremendously just by being involved. So I want to do that for people. It'll usually start with a meeting with me, and we go through. I have a document that we put together with our mission statement as a worship ministry, what our values are, how we
Mm,
approach things, how we decide on new songs. Like we were just talking about,
mm,
what is it that we're really trying to do. um, how do we value excellence and skill versus all these other goals. And we also want them to have a walk with Christ and to have a real commitment to this local church in particular,
mm.
Mhm.
whether they're members or they're approaching membership or that kind of a commitment. So we'll go through that. I'll share my testimony. I'll hear their testimony of coming to know Christ. And we do have an audition part, which this year we just, for the first time ever in all of my years, have another part-time worship director on staff, which is
Nice.
a real joy for me because, he grew up in our church. He's super talented, great guy, but really understands what we're trying to do. And so I'll be able to talk with him and have an interview with somebody, and we just take out the piano and the guitar and start playing and have that person sing with me if they're auditioning for singing. I'll break into a harmony and see if they lose their place or, because I will kind of keep raising the bar with them. And sometimes, you tell somebody, I'm sorry, I don't think you're ready for this yet. Here's some other areas I think God has gifted you to serve, but maybe not in this way. You try to do that gently. We want everyone to find what their gifts are and to serve. It's just some people think singing in front of the church and worship team is something that they aspire to because they see it every week.
Yeah.
So we try to I've been really blessed by the singers we have, but I try to communicate to a new audition person that this is more than just singing along. This is leading. So we're asking somebody to be up front and to lead in the way they sing. So even if in their in-ear mix, everything's messed up and they can't hear anyone else singing, that they're going to stay on the right notes and they're going to be able to capably sing by themselves if need be. And so we kind of raise the bar on that.
Sure.
Scare them a little bit, maybe that it's not a skill that everybody has. And then also even just visually that my worship team, I'm so blessed by them. They're also humble. If they could sing behind a curtain, they would do it. But they're just humble people. But I say you're singing in front of people because you're going to communicate non-verbally by the look on your face and the way that you sing and the way that you stand. And we have this goal of engaging the congregation and giving glory to God. And if you can serve in a way that's going to do that, then praise God. We'll try to make that happen and make that work. But if anything's going to be a distraction from that goal, then we need to revisit that. So we do that interview. Sometimes it might be, let's meet again, or it might be they might pass with flying colors, and we'll get them on planning center and have them come to a practice. Sometimes we've had people come to a rehearsal and just shadow, be there and just see what it's like, and see what they think after that. But I've been spoiled with like all our harmony singers. They all do it by ear. They're really good at it. I'm just so blessed by that. But once in a while, somebody will audition and you'll have to kind of redirect them to something else.
Yeah.
You mentioned you having a document. Is that something you'd be willing to share if some people
Absolutely.
were interested and see what that looks like? So what would be a good way to reach out to you if someone would like to copy that document?
Yeah, absolutely. I could take an email anytime. I can email it to you after this if you want to make it available. I've also posted it, I think, in the EFCA Worship Leaders Facebook group. So I would highly recommend that. EFCA Worship Leaders, get in that group. It's just been really, really a great way to connect and get to know others. But they can email me at Pastor Karl, that's Karl with a K, Pastor Karl at fellowshipefc.org, and I'd be happy to send that to them. Or they could find me in that Facebook group, and I'll send it to them that way.
That is awesome. Mike, you have another question?
Well, I was just going to ask, you mentioned when you have volunteers who are trying to onboard, they're interested in the ministry, and you think maybe, you're not there, let's help you find another ministry to serve that's in your gifting. Do you ever have volunteers or people who are interested in volunteering, rather, who you think, you might be really good at this, but you're not quite there, so take some time to grow in your giftedness and in your skill and then come back? Do you give them resources? How do you help them kind of bridge the gap between where they are and where you want them to be to serve in your ministry?
Yeah, that's a good question. One of the projects that our worship director is working on now, his name is John, and he is trying to develop some of those materials and some of those resources so that we can do exactly that. So like here's some websites, maybe a Paul Baloche, training on guitar playing, or some sort of websites or sources that they can go and do some practicing on their own, learn how to play play guitar, to learn more about guitar. Here's some, because we can't give private lessons. Sometimes people will say, can you train me until I'm ready? We don't really have the bandwidth to do that, but I'll meet a couple of times or something. But if they need ongoing training, it'd be good to get them connected to maybe even just YouTube on playing, practicing along with them. For drummers, there's things like Vimeo and or Drumeo, and some other sources like that. And then sometimes we'll look for other ways for them to serve. We will occasionally have a worship choir. And by occasionally, I mean every year or two. We've done for Easter, had a worship choir just back up all the other singers. And so that is a chance for somebody who can sing along well, but maybe not ready to sing lead into a microphone. They could be with a group. And so we might invite them to be a part of that as a step in between. Sometimes there have been a couple that have gotten involved with leading worship with our kids ministry. And they just love music and they love kids, and it was a good fit. And so they could do that. So try to find other opportunities for them to serve. Or maybe if it's an area where they just need a little more experience, a little more growth, try to encourage them in that.
Great.
Yeah. As we record this, today is the National Day of Prayer. So I figured it'd be a good opportunity to ask just about the role of prayer in your worship service. Is this is it a formal element, or is it something that is just done along the way amongst the worship team, or do you have pastors do it, other leaders, scripted or extemporaneous? Like, what is the role of prayer in your particular service?
Yeah, in most of our worship services, a lot of our songs are songs of prayer. We're singing to the Lord, and so I'll try to highlight that by the in-between, the introduction into the song, maybe during the bridge, just keep strumming and take an instrumental break and just do a few sentences of prayer that way. I think my goal in doing that is that people see the whole song as a time of prayer. So that little bridge, I'm thinking of the song Abide, right before you go into that bridge, I won't bow down to idols. I'll stand strong and worship you. I might start that progression there and then just start extemporaneously leading a prayer there, focused on, Lord, I want to offer myself to you as an act of worship, and just try to pour that out and turn our focus to that. And that way, when we start singing that bridge, it has more meaning, because that's what we're singing about. And then it builds and gets stronger and is pretty engaging that way. I'll always pray, maybe at the end of a song or between songs and like that. We'll have different times that if a pastor's coming up leading a pastoral prayer for things, sometimes a member of the worship team might do that. Certainly we have prayer all over our time of communion. We have the different elders participate in thanking God for the bread, thanking God for the cup, leading in prayer, just so that our focus is on Christ during that time. So, we don't normally have like a time of extended like prayer requests being prayed for up front, like some churches might, but we try to meet those requests in other ways through prayer teams and that kind of thing.
Yeah, that's great.
Excellent. Micah, you got anything else?
I always love to hear what are you doing as a worship leader and pastor to learn and grow? Oftentimes I do that through reading. So I'm always kind of curious to hear, what books are you reading, or maybe what books have you read that have been really influential in how you've cared for your team, cared for your congregation, or just learned and grown in your own theology of worship?
Yeah, that's great. I'm not as much of a reader. I do know how to read, but I don't have a stack. I don't have a stack of books that it just takes so long. Like one book that I've been working on for a long time is Transforming Worship by Rory Nolan.
Yeah, that one's been coming up a lot.
Yeah, I mean, it's a really great concept, and it fits exactly with our heart as a church, that seeing worship as something that's leading to our spiritual transformation and being made more like Christ. And so I think that's just an important subject to think about. But I do listen to quite a bit of podcasts, and some of the shows that I follow. I'm just checking my list. Worship Catalyst is one. This show, EFCA Worship Leader
Oh,
Podcast,
nice shout out. Thank you,
I'm
Kyle.
subscribed to that one, of course.
Naturally.
Other theology podcasts, EFCA Theology Podcast is a great one.
Yeah.
And that's Sound Plus Doctrine podcast with Bob Coughlin. That's a great one, very practical. So yeah, a Worship Artistry is another one. Worship Fuel. Those are the primary ones that I'll listen to. I will say, going this last year, I asked our lead pastor and our elders if I could go to that worship gathering, national gathering. Micah, what town? That was in Milwaukee, right?
It was in Madison, but yeah,
Madison.
close to
That's right.
Milwaukee.
Close enough.
Wisconsin.
I'm from Pennsylvania. What do I know?
Don't tell anyone from Madison.
Sorry, Madison. It was really enriching for me and really
Good.
encouraging. Just to be there and be amongst this group of other worship leaders. Just took the plunge, set aside the money, and went there. I think even just following up in that Facebook group with people that I met there, I think it helps me continue to grow. And so I'm trying to do more of that. Our EFCA East district is the district that we're in. So we have a cohort of worship leaders. So if anyone is in the EFCA East, they can contact. We have a Slack group where we're communicating. It's small, but we've really grown in our relationships with each other. Got great song suggestions from them. Some of
do you
I
meet
would
in
say
person, or is it more like a Zoom or something? Or
we are doing Zoom meetings a couple of times a year. We did see each other at our district conference. We've tried, but kind of it hasn't worked out to do an in-person meeting yet. We're talking about trying to do that this summer. We've got Martin Guitars in Pennsylvania, so we could meet at the Martin Guitar Factory or something. Could be a good time. But it's been really good to build those relationships. So I'm at that phase of my life, and I'd like to do more and more of that. And we as a church, in our vision statement, multiplying, we're trying to look outside the walls of our church and look for ways that we can invest in others, and in the process, of course, I grow in those relationships. So I really appreciate it. That's why, Paul, you emailed me about if I'd be willing to do this, and I said I absolutely, totally would love to do this, because that's what we're trying to do. That's what I'm trying to do now. It really does build me up.
That's great.
So I like to end our podcast by just asking a question that just helps us get to know you a little bit better. So the get to know Karl question is, if you were walking across the graduation stage, you just earned a PhD, what would it be in?
I love it. It's a great question.
Wow. Does it have to be real, or could it be fictional?
No, fictional is fine, because we want to know you.
This is not as pious as it sounds, but just to know the heart of God, to know, like when I took this step to be, because I was bivocational. I was a Christian school teacher at my last church, so I was there for 17 years. Coming here was the first step of being full-time in church ministry. And as I took that step, I thought, that I want to think about this as my full-time job is to know God's heart and to just let what I do reflect what he values the most, and get just to draw near to Christ. We read Hebrews 8, 9, 10, just about, we have this incredible invitation to draw near to Christ through the gospel, draw near to God with hearts full of faith. And so, there's nothing I want to know better than, what God is really like, what he values the most, and let ministry flow out of just an accurate understanding of who God is. So if they give a PhD in that, I would love it.
Oh, that is so good. Gentlemen, thank you for taking some time to spend with us, to get to know you a little bit better. Karl, Micah, great questions. Really appreciate your time. Any last words?
No, if I could real quick,
absolutely.
Our worship ministry does have a mission statement that we drafted that's been helpful for us. So I just want to say what our worship ministry exists for.
Would be wonderful.
That's great. That's perfect.
Yeah, and so our church is called Fellowship Church, and the Fellowship Worship Ministry mission statement is that we exist to engage the entire congregation in giving praise, honor, and glory to God in a spirit of reverence, submission, obedience, and unity, thus displaying the glory and the lordship of Jesus Christ. So that's our goal. One of my little phrases, and I would love it if this caught on. I'll tell people if they say, "Oh, great songs today. Appreciate it, Pastor Karl." I'll say, "Well, thank you for being a part of it, because no matter where you stand, you're always on the worship team."
That's right.
I just remind them the whole room is on the worship team, not just the people on the stage. So
Amen.
Good, so good, gentlemen. Thanks so much.
thank you so much. Really appreciate it.